Why is SaaS the future? This video is going to be a little bit different. I want to sit and reflect back on where software was and where software is going to, and where software as a service business models sit in that whole equation. I'm Matt Grace, Managing Director of Flying Donkey. Let's get into it. Let's start at where the solution was prior to software as a service. Prior to software as a service, desktop applications were the main norm. When you were a client wanting to purchase some software, you had to run a local network. On that local network, someone would come and install a server on your machine, and that server would service desktop clients in your office. Now, this worked perfectly fine and enabled users and businesses to get on board with software. They now want to see how positive software can be on their business and how it can help them scale and be more efficient. There were obviously some significant negatives here for this model. First and foremost, it meant that the business user as themselves had to run the architecture and the infrastructure themselves. Having in-house desktop machines and also running their own server infrastructure put all the burden of IT and technology onto the business. That meant that I had to employ an external company to both maintain and manage that IT software, both upgrade that hardware over time, as well as having some knowledge in-house on how to maintain and run things. There was also a lot more presence needed to be physically, because you were trying to maintain those physical servers and physical workstations. Desktop applications also needed to be installed on client machines, and that meant that users had to be secure in the desktop operations they were doing. The maintenance, the overhead, and the costs of doing all this was quite significant. That's why when something like software as a service came along that centralized a lot of these problems, it came to be a really good solution. And when the business could simply roll out a piece of software without having to invest in upfront architecture costs and ongoing maintenance costs, and could defer all these risks to someone else. And at the same time, from a business perspective, it meant that they could then concentrate on their business rather than trying to concentrate on running the software. I'll touch on it briefly where I want to talk about a little bit more, and that is that obviously the way that we've worked has changed. COVID's had a huge impact on how people move and how people work, but realistically, if you look back even further than that, how we actually operated in the office was a bit different. Over time, mobile phones have become more prevalent, and accessing things on the go on your phone, tablet, or laptop have become more commonplace. With the traditional method of having a server and desktop-based application, it meant that it was impossible for someone to actually access any of these things on the go. There was a middle ground there for a little while, where certain clients could be installed on your phone or laptop to try and access the server in the office. Or you could use something like Citrix or Remote Desktop to work in. These situations are more of a middle ground to try and solve a problem they weren't really designed for. And this again is where software as a service came from. Once the application is web-based and has a web application front end, it can also be rolled out to phones, laptops, and tablets with very relatively easiness. Working remotely and even not working in the office probably wasn't something that was going to happen even 2-3 years ago, but now even more than ever, working remotely and working from home is standard place. Having a software as a service product allows this to be done so easily and so securely. And it's probably honestly been one of the main drivers as to why software as a service has become even popular. You would have seen over the COVID time that software as a service companies, they peaked in their market cap. That's because everyone can see the value of using these products because they are completely decoupled from the physical office architecture. They're hosted in the cloud and they can run in a browser on any application. Software as a service solved this problem before it even occurred, but because this problem has now become more front page, it means that software as a service is solving this problem into the future. I touched on it initially when I talked about where software as a service came from and how it's replacing desktop and legacy applications. One of the things I glossed over there was really around security. And that is becoming even more prominent in the world today. With more data being collected than ever before and more access to anything than ever before, security is becoming a bigger and bigger important part of software. When applications were server and desktop based, again, we deferred this security down to the actual business themselves. And while there was some positives to have it on a local network, you essentially have people who have no skills in technology maintaining the security aspects. Updates and end of life was very common for these applications. They were on old operating systems that never got upgraded, they were on versions of the software that never got upgraded, and they simply just ran out of security patching. Conversely, in a software as a service model, because it's maintained and managed by both a software development company and or by one of the cloud providers, the level of security is far, far greater. Again, I wouldn't say this was the driver that made SaaS the way it was, but it's been a contributing factor that's been sitting in the back wings. Security is now more important than ever, and data breaches are simply not tolerated. Taking that risk on as a business is simply seen as something that's non-viable, and they want to defer that risk to someone else. And that's where the software as a service product comes in. At the same time, updating, patching, and releasing constant features is something that's really hard to do on a desktop-based application. Conversely, a software as a service model, because it's deployed to a single server, can really easily have these updates on an ongoing basis. Once the security flaw is found, it can be patched and updated very quickly. Another thing I want to touch on is really around scale. Now, when you're running an application on your own network, you are the ones who are responsible for scale. If a business starts out with 10 users, they're generally going to put their server at the size of about 10 to 20 users. As the business gets more and more employees on, they're going to outgrow this infrastructure. That was a cost and a burden that the business themselves had to maintain, but is now deferred again to the software companies. Software as a service solves this very nicely, particularly paired with cloud products. It allows businesses to get on a product, learn how it works, roll it out to a smaller set of users, build up their workflows, and then scale very easily. It defers all the complexities of having large databases and bigger feature sets to the software as a service company. Again, making sure the business themselves are concentrating on what they do best rather than concentrating on what the software does. At the same time, businesses grow and require more features. In the traditional model with desktop applications, deploying updates and features to that local network was very difficult and cumbersome. It generally meant either some sort of way to connect to the servers through, say, remote desktop, or even an on-field site technician to come and see them. This obviously had considerable cost and overhead to the software, which has now been taken away with software as a service models. Software as a service models, the actual business themselves holds the keys to the software, and they are allowed to deliver and update the software, particularly on a daily or even hourly basis. This allows more and more features to be added to the software, which helps the businesses using them scale and grow with it. So here, I really want to summarize what I've discussed here and why software as a service is becoming such a standard part of business. Realistically, looking back at where software came from and where it's gone to, you can see that it's evolved over time to match the demands of the market. That is, businesses want to concentrate on their core offering, they aren't IT specialists, and there's more demand for software on the go, both on your phones, tablets, and laptops, as well as more work from home. Security is becoming an ever-increasing part of the world, and software as a service also solves this. Together, I don't think any one aspect of this is the reason why software as a service has succeeded and why it's the future. But conversely, I think it's because of all four of these items that it is the future. It's only a growing area, and I can't see anyone reverting back to an archaic setup where they're going to install their own software and their own desktop setup. Sure, I don't think the SaaS as a service model is perfect, and there is some issues there, which I'm sure I can discuss in some other videos, but inherently, software as a service is the future business model for software, and I can foresee it being around for a long time into the future. Here at Flying Donkey, we build software as a service products for some of the biggest clients in the world. We help them deliver their software to their clients on daily basis, keep their security updated, and maintain their cloud products. If you're looking to build a SaaS product, or you're looking to help move it to the next level, feel free to get in touch and we'd be happy to help.